So, it's first Sunday of the month. Everybody's staying in. We're all in together. It's also Ask Me Anything. But if you've got questions, I want to answer your questions however old you are. And we always have some questions that people have already written, that have dropped in the basket, and Kim and I have thought about them, and we have answers. Some people at the first service have given us answers that we'll share as well. If you've got other questions as we go along, put your hand up. We will answer your questions. That's how this works. Yes?
How come the church was made?
Okay, good question. Maybe we'll start with that. Isha's question, how come the church was made? Do you mean how come this church was built?
No, how come the first ever church was made?
How come the first ever church was made? You mean what do you mean by church?
I mean by this. So who thought to build it?
Who thought to build? So the buildings? That's a good question, isn't it? How did we get the first church buildings? Isha's question. We can start with that. How did the first church buildings get built? Do you know? The format for this is that I answer your questions, but you have to have a go first. Have we got our roving? We need somebody. Where's the?
We need a
best boy. Dan's going to wander around with the microphone. How did the first churches get built? It's a good question. Surely some of you have some thoughts. Val's got a thought. Pointed at Val. How did the first churches get built?
It's probably because the weather was so bad outside, they thought they'd go in a building.
Probably because the weather was so bad. They thought they'd better get something with a roof on it. It's a good answer. Simon?
I think it's probably to do with St. Paul. I think he did some quite impressive missionary work in the early days of the church, went to places in Greece, Thessalonica, the letters that are in the back of the Bible. And I think those people were fairly well persecuted by the people who lived there. So they decided they would have meeting places. And it first started in secrecy, but then obviously it grew, and so they realized they needed buildings.
Yeah. Is that a good answer? That's a really good answer. They started sort of secretly. What buildings were they meeting in when the church started? Those early Christians, the first people who said, "Oh, this Jesus stuff is good. Let's get together and meet." Where were they meeting? Pauline. Houses. They were meeting in each other's houses. So when we first started, there were just a few Christians in a place. We'll all just meet at my house or at your house, and then eventually, you need a place that's bigger than that. What's that? They were still meeting in synagogues. What's a synagogue? Oh, like a Jewish church, a Jewish place. It literally means meet. Within synagogues, lots of them. Synagogue means meeting place, I think. So, yeah, the first Christians, lots of the first Christians, Isha, were Jews, and they met in Jewish places of worship, and they kept meeting there. It all started changing when the Romans took over Christianity, which is a complicated way of saying a difficult thing. But when the Emperor Constantine became a Christian and said, right, everybody's going to be a Christian now, whether they like it or not, which is not how we do things, but he did start building churches. It's a short answer to a long question, but that's a good question. Thank you very much. If you have other questions, well, we'll do a few of these first, but write them down. You can even write them on a penguin. Good. Kim.
Okay, so why is it that a bishop or archbishop does confirmation and not a vicar?
Why does the bishop I'm not allowed to do confirmation. People got confirmed here last year. Is anyone in the building who got confirmed in November? Tracy did. You got confirmed, and Alex. And I'm not allowed to confirm you. I would have loved to have confirmed you, but I'm not. I baptise people, but we have to get the bishop in to do confirmation, which is a whole question about what confirmation is. So it used to be, I did a bit of research, I had to ask some friends, I forgot, but it used to be that only bishops could do this. Being baptised and being confirmed was such an important thing that in the early church, the bishops who had oversight, bishop is just someone who's overseeing a whole area and wandering around, they would be the person who would do this. But then Christianity got really popular, as hopefully we all think it should. And lots of people are going, I want to be baptised. And being baptised is so important. They started saying, right, I tell you what, you're a priest, You can do the baptisms, and then we'll wait and the bishops do the second bit. We kind of split the two apart because there was such a need for more people to be baptized sooner. The idea that it's either a priest or a bishop. In the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, not all churches are like this, when you are made a priest, when you're ordained, which presumably I'm not the only person in the room to whom that will happen. When you are ordained, whoever you are, the bishop will put his hands on your head and pray for you. Now, somebody did that to that bishop. That bishop was prayed for by his bishop. And then that bishop was prayed for with his hands on his head by the bishop before him. And this line of bishops praying for the people underneath them goes back all the way to, so we say, St. Peter, the first bishop of Rome, and to the rest of the apostles who were prayed for by Jesus. So there's this kind of unbroken line of people who have been prayed for and had their hands placed on their heads by bishops and priests going all the way back in the apostolic succession, we call it. All the way back to the apostles. Now, I'm in that apostolic succession. If I've prayed for you, you're in that apostolic succession. But we keep the confirmation bit just for bishops because it's this idea, when you're confirmed, the bishop who did that has done other churches, and they do the whole area, and it unites you. When Tracy's been ordained by the Bishop of Kirkstall, so have, I don't know, a couple of hundred other people that year over his ministry, or by the previous Bishop of Kirkstall. So you're all, whichever Anglican church you go to, part of the same club. You're in the same group and blessed in the same way. So it's a thing, the bishop, it being the bishop, unites us. That's my answer. Have I missed any bits, people who've got more education than me? It is special. If you would like to be baptized or confirmed, come and see me, and we'll make it happen. You can be confirmed here at church, and we can wait till there's 10 of us and we'll all do it together. But if you want to be confirmed, and it's important, we don't have to wait till November, and I can get that done somewhere in the diocese with you. It's beautiful. See me.
Okay. So, tricky one.
Yeah.
Do you think that the closer you get to God, the more the devil tries to sabotage your faith?
Oh, good question. Do I think? I like a question that starts with do I think, because it recognises that what Rob thinks is, well, provisional. What do you think? I have answers, I have thoughts. What do you think as God's people in this place? Do you think as you get closer to God that the devil tries to sabotage that, to make it complicated, to get in the way, to spoil things? Do we have thoughts or experiences on that? I'm not ducking the issue, but what do you think? Pauline has thoughts.
I think it's more when you get closer to God and when you serve God, you do things to maybe encourage other people to become Christians. That's when he doesn't like it. Satan doesn't like it. So he tries to stop you in some way, tries to discourage you, or, I don't know, somebody says something that upsets you. But just before you're coming out to church, you might have an argument with, it's not always Satan, but, he gets in there when you are serving God. That's what I think.
Okay. So that you've noticed that it's often as people are making a difference, taking God seriously, which often does go along with the increase in your faith. Okay. But God is bigger. Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to let it go. Any other thoughts on this? I think there's something in that, and I don't know what is in it. This is one of those bits where I stand at the front without a great deal of certainty. I don't know what I think the devil is. I think lots of ideas that we have about who the devil is come more from tradition and peculiar Reformation art than come from what's in the Bible. I remember being horrified one day at college when our doctrine professor said that he didn't think the devil existed, and all of our faces melted, and we said, what? And he said, no, there's something there, but I think, he said his words, I think exist is too big a word for whatever the devil is. That whatever the devil is, it's not the opposite of God. God is all things. God is super powerful. God has won all of that. It's not very clear what the devil is from the Bible, but there's something there, and it's dark and unpleasant and after you. I think most of the illness and bad stuff and evil that we see in the world is not the result of dark satanic powers. I think most of the evil in the world is the result of people like you and me making poor choices and being selfish. But there are certainly dark things in the world. This is one of my favourite books about this sort of thing, the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, which is fiction. But Lewis, who I love, says the two mistakes a human being can make about the devil is to pay him too much attention or not enough. I've got friends who think every evil thing is the work of Satan, and that's ridiculous and unhelpful. I've got friends who think there's no such thing as the devil, and I can't square that. There's dark stuff in the world. But I do think that stuff comes at us as we get closer to God. I think God is on our side. God is bigger. The light is stronger than the darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. All of that. And I think very occasionally of people like St. John of the Cross or St. Ignatius of Loyola, who started the... who did he start? The Jesuits. Like some of these great saints. And they write of this long, dark night of the soul. That sometimes God withdraws himself from us, that sometimes things seem to seem dark, and that's God doing us as part of our growth in faith. And I don't know how you tell which is which, but I trust in the darkness the things that I learned in the light, like that song, blessed be your name, even when it's dark, that God has won. The fight is still going on, but God has won that fight, and I trust that. David's had a hand up for a little bit. Did you want to say something, David? Wait for the microphone so we can hear you.
Coincidentally, before I came here this morning, I was watching a couple of political programs on the television, and amazingly, two politicians, one talking about the Irish question, and the other one talking about the Boris Johnson question, both said, "We can't answer your question this morning because the devil is in the detail."
Yep. It's a good answer. The devil's all sorts of places, but he's not everywhere, and God is. Anything that we want to touch further on there, do you think, Kim? Do you have thoughts and knowledge?
I think there's maybe two things. I think certainly when, if the devil's intention is to get at me when I'm walking closer with God, then he's got it wrong, because it just confirms I'm doing the right thing, so I just carry on pressing in. I do think sometimes when you are walking closely with God, you can feel that the things are trying to get in the way, be that the devil or not, but that's not going to win for me. And then the other thing as well, which I think can sometimes feel like you're being got at or persecution, is that when you're walking closely with God, I think there's things in your life which are not godly, and he refines us and he makes us better. And in that process, it can hurt. And I think all the parents in the room my analogy for this one is it's a bit like when you start as a Christian, you're combing your hair with an afro comb, so it goes through easily. The knots aren't too bad. Then you've maybe got a tangle teaser, so it doesn't hurt quite so much. But by the time you're really walking closely, it's a nick comb, and actually if that catches a knot, it's painful. But that's just us coming through a process, and God's with us in that. So he wants us to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might feel like we're being persecuted.
Yep. We could do this all day. If you have more thoughts or more questions on what might be going on with that, then do continue to talk to each other and grab me afterwards.
So our next question is probably quite timely given where we're headed to our annual meeting shortly. But what is a warden?
What is a warden? What is a warden? Dan is a warden. That is a warden. Well, Sandra is a warden. Pauline was a warden. John was a warden. Kath was a warden. Brenda was a warden. Sylvia was a warden. something that will be a warden. Dan's stepping down in May, so is Sandra. Interesting to think about what a warden is and isn't. The example I used this morning, I think some people look at our wardens and go, I couldn't do what they do. And my answer is that, of course, you don't have to. When the hob breaks, the electric hob in the barn breaks, we ask Dan to fix that because he's an electrician. When Dan has stepped down from being a warden, and Matt is the warden, say, when the hob breaks, are we sending Matt to fix it? No, probably not. You're not an electrician, are you, Matt? No. Nor am I saying you'll be the next warden, or when it's Kim, or when it's Fiona. Dan doesn't do that because he's the warden. There are lots of things that our wardens do and that our past wardens have done that they do because they love to. Pauline's not the warden anymore, and she's still helping set the table up, and she's still leading prayer ministry. She does those things even though she's not the warden anymore. So there's something about being the warden that is, you just keep doing whatever it is that you do at church, and often you take on new things. Dan, have you got something to add to this? What is being a warden at its core? What's it been for you? Hold the microphone, there you go.
It's just been a really sort of important part of the church, it's serving God, probably, in a different way. I mean, we all do, but, it's probably like the next step, it's a step up from that and doing more, and, it's got its rewards,
You've talked powerfully about that sense of being part of the big occasions and sort of working behind the scenes. Can I ask you this? When you first started, did you feel ready for it when you started?
Yes and no. Because obviously I was asked to be a warden and thought about it a while, and, well, do you know what? Yeah, it's something I'd like to do, but there's just so much goes with that, all that responsibility, and, but it was all explained that, you don't have to take all that responsibility on straight away. There's another warden there, Sandra, already in the role, but there's just so many. It's like a really good team around us. So many. There's previous wardens. As I'll be a previous warden, and to help people settle into the role. And it's not something that you've just got to grasp straight away and take everything on straight away. You can just slowly into it. So yeah.
We're looking at, there's a lot of people that do a lot of things at this church. I think more than most churches. We're a bunch of doers. But we're trying to formalise this. Brenda's kind of in charge of this at the minute, and she's writing a list. So we're creating this thing called Team Warden that we will invite people to be on, who will just do some of those bits that often the wardens do. Margaret will come and open up when the boiler needs looking at. Jonathan will come in up when the organ needs sorting. The people will take care of different bits. Somebody can say, well, I'll sort out the register for who's going to sign up for school. Lots of bits that the wardens do. The wardens don't need to do. Anyone can. And we can gather a team that will do that. And we'll make that explicit so that when you're thinking, should I be the warden, you'll know this is the defined bit. Brenda's in the middle of writing that job description for us. So look out for that. The other thing I would say is this. My hope is that the next wardens serve for 1 for 3 and 1 for 4 years, and then after everybody does 3 years and then stops. Okay, so we're not all changing at the same time. If you're going to be part of this church for the next 20, 30, 40 years, if you're not at that stage of your church life or you're starting to put things down perhaps, then quite possibly one of these days it'll be your turn to be the warden. And that's how it should work. We should all do it for a bit and then stop. And there's seasons in life where it works. When should you be on the prayer ministry team? When should you be doing... There's all sorts of different roles. There are things that you are called to do. And I have rarely found more joy in church life, at least, than knowing what I'm supposed to do and doing it for a bit. But the more we can get into that habit of going, well, I'll do it for 3 years and then stop, then you're not worried. The next bit along, go, well, I can see that they stopped doing it. I know that it will be finite and limited. Do watch and pray and think. If it's you or people you know, or when will it be? When will that season be that it fits? We'll do 1 or 2 more.
What's the difference, faith-wise, between Baptist, Methodist and Church of England?
The cups. We had a question about the cups earlier. It's a good question, and there's a huge, long answer to it. And I don't know how important those differences are for the most part. I know why I ended up being an Anglican and not one of the other things. But I think for the most part, I'd have gone to whichever church was in my area that my friends went to. That's why I ended up at a Church of England church. They're all good Christian churches. It depends which things are important to you. If it's really important to you that children don't get baptized, that you have to be a grown-up and make that decision yourself, well, maybe you're a Baptist, and that's fine. And if you think, no, it's good, children are part of the family of God, I think they should be baptized at the start, and we'll do confirmation later, then maybe you're an Anglican. But the big differences, I think, are quite small. If you want to know about Methodists, talk to Roy, because he is a Methodist minister and now worships in an Anglican church. But they have a big structure like we do, so there is a national Methodist structure. The Baptists are much more congregational. Every church kind of works itself out. Yeah, we could do half an hour on that and we won't. Question? A thought on that? Okay, completely other question. Go on.
Yeah. How does God explain how the dinosaurs came to be?
How does God explain how the dinosaurs came to be? I don't think he does. He hasn't had anything to say about that explicitly. I like the song about science. In the 18th century, when science was exploding at the same time as evolution was being discovered, that was a Christian project. Like Charles Darwin was a Christian. This idea that God has given us reason and brains and stuff. Let us find out how the world works. That's how God works. God is a God of reason and order. People had read Genesis and thought, what that is telling us is God liked to do things, this thing, that thing, stop for a bit, this thing, that thing, stop for a bit. The world works according to a system. Let us work out what it is. So God explains dinosaurs, should an explanation be needed, by giving us scientists to whom we listen when they have evidence for things that they have thought about. That's how. So, yeah, through people. God seems to do most of his important stuff through people. They're not in the Bible. The people who wrote it hadn't heard of dinosaurs. How could they be? But that's fine. The Bible isn't the only book that has things that are true and beautiful and wonderful in it. And that's all right. All right? Good. Good question. Have we got time for anything else?
Really? I'm not sure we do.
Okay, we'll hear the other questions and then you can think about them and ask us later. Go on.
So the questions that we haven't answered were what's happening in prayer ministry. There was a course.
Yeah, it's starting soon.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Why do we all still drink from the same cup for communion post-COVID?
Because we're not Methodists or Baptists.
And when your husband, wife or family member dies as a Christian, they go to be with Jesus. How does the Lord comfort and look after those that are left behind?
Oh, yeah, you could spend
one.
20 minutes or 20 years on that. He does, and it's awful, and church should be the place you could come and be sad. When we answered that in the first service, most of the answers about how God comforts us when stuff is awful are through God's people being here when you are sad and cross. And that church is a safe place to be sad and cross. And the Bible is full of psalms and stories of people who've been sad and cross with God, even when it's not God's fault, and that's fine. And mysteriously, that somehow eventually, when stuff hurts, we start to feel a bit better some of the time in prayer and through prayer ministry. Yeah, and it is hard. We sang that Matt Redman song earlier, and I love Matt Redman's songs. Some of his songs he wrote after he'd had significant family tragedies and that, and he writes that, blessed be your name when it's good, and blessed be your name when it's bad. There's something about knowing that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that the goodness of God and the things that he has said to us in the light remain true, even when it is hard. That's a short, pithy answer, and the one thing I would say is that short, pithy theological answers are the last thing we should give to anybody who is struggling and grieving. What we should do is be with them and say, yeah, that's rubbish.
I guess it's maybe something that people in home groups could discuss as going deeper.
We will put those other questions into this week's Going Deeper that I will attach, and it'll be under here, and there'll be a link, and Toby will attach it. And if more questions come out of that, so much the better. But some of the answers to these are, yeah, sorry about that. But this is the place to wrestle.
It's good to have questions.